Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome or welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast with me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, I'm going to go with a dazzling Oregon. It's been really beautiful. If you listened last week, you know I was over in Central Oregon, and I almost used majestic to remind myself of being there with all the mountains and the sunshine around me. I'm back in Western Oregon, and the weather looks great for the whole week, and it's dazzling around here. So, and also the sunshine, as you all know. You know I'm a sunshine girl, right? You know that I tend to complain a little bit about the rain, and when it's sunny, I am always, maybe my voice even sounds happier. I definitely feel it in my mood, and I've talked about that. And it got me thinking, what's actually happening in my brain when we get this natural light? Why does it feel so different? And it turns out that sunlight actually boosts dopamine, especially in the morning. And I've talked before about morning light and about getting out there and the importance of morning light for our circadian rhythms. But dopamine isn't just about that pleasure. It's about motivation. It's about what drives your desire to take action. And that led me to an even deeper question. And that was that, is it good to have more dopamine, or do we want less dopamine? Or do we just need to manage and understand dopamine better? Because high, fast dopamine spikes, like the kind that we get from alcohol or sugar or even our phones sometimes, they actually lower impulse control. And that's a major problem when you're trying to change a habit like drinking. But here's where this becomes kind of personal. I know many of you believe that you are just undisciplined, that you lack willpower. And I certainly understand that because I believed that about myself for many, many years. I had that narrative in my brain. And you believe that you should be able to drink less or stop altogether, but you just can't. And you may even believe that it's just a character flaw, right? What if I told you that it's actually maybe more of a chemistry issue, a brain chemistry issue, and you're not really broken, you're not a hopeless cause, and you can change it? We're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to talk about 6 research-backed strategies to help you manage dopamine on purpose, and strategies that will help rebuild motivation, protect your focus, your energy, and support making a lasting change, a sustainable change in terms of your drinking habits or your relationship with alcohol. So let's get into it. I have done episodes on dopamine previously, and I'm going to talk about those. I did one back in January, I think Thursday episode, where I really talked about dopamine and understanding it a little bit more in terms of just what it is. And then I also interviewed Dr. Lembke on her book, Dopamine Nation. And I will link both of those episodes in the show notes. As I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about those in this episode. But today I want to dive deeper into what's going on with dopamine in terms of managing it on a daily basis and understanding why managing it
and how we use it in our lives is important and may help you, like I said, kind of rewrite that narrative that you lack self-discipline. So dopamine is a chemical messenger in the brain, and it plays a major role in motivation, drive, and anticipation. I'm sure you kind of know that if you've been around here for any length of time, listened, you've heard me talk about it. And it's not so much about the feeling of pleasure, which a lot of people hear that dopamine is the feel-good chemical, right? But it's actually the anticipation that dopamine is really driving. It's about that feeling that something is worth pursuing. And of course, we know that alcohol, maybe we know, I'm saying of course, I believe I've said it enough times on the podcast. Alcohol actually delivers a very fast acting spike in dopamine, about 2.5 to 3 times your normal baseline levels. And it tells your brain that alcohol is amazing. So let's do it again. Over time, your brain tries to compensate and it downregulates your natural dopamine production and becomes less sensitive to pleasure overall. And this leads to what Dr. Lembke describes as the dopamine deficit state. Life without alcohol starts to feel flat, and motivation goes down, and the urge to drink isn't just about stress or trauma, it's your brain trying to get back to the baseline using the fastest tool it knows, which again, we've trained our brains, right? That this is how we do it. We use the alcohol. And that's why when you start cutting back or eliminating alcohol, you can feel tired and bored or stuck. But it doesn't mean that you're failing in any way. It actually means your dopamine system is healing and getting back to that natural level. And this is the beauty of our beautiful, brilliant human brains. They can be retrained. And we can do that a lot more easily probably than we anticipate, especially when it comes to dopamine. So do we actually want more dopamine? And the answer there is not exactly. What we want is balanced, sustainable dopamine signaling. We want to give our brain space to find joy in everyday effort and not just artificial highs. When we spike dopamine too often or too intensely, the prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain that is responsible for discipline, long-term planning, and decision-making, gets suppressed. And that's where the cycle of, I know better, but I can't stop, gets its power. Okay, I want you to hear that again. It's important. When we spike dopamine too often or too intensely, that's how come our prefrontal cortex kind of goes offline. It gets suppressed. And that's why it feels like we are stuck in this pattern of, I want to drink less, but I can't seem to. It isn't about willpower. It's literally about neurochemistry. When dopamine is unstable, so is self-discipline. And that's why managing dopamine isn't just helpful. It's really essential if you want to change your drinking habits or build better ones. So let's talk about how we can do that. Here are 6 science-informed strategies that will help you regulate dopamine and retrain your motivation circuitry in a way. These are not about perfection or restriction. They're about creating a more stable brain environment for progress and ultimately for peace, right? Number 1, don't layer high dopamine activities together. Okay, what do I mean by that? And this comes from Dr. Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman. I've mentioned him before. Many people know about Huberman's views on alcohol. And while I don't agree with everything that Huberman says or does, I definitely respect his science. And he is a Stanford researcher, so I know that he does the due diligence there. And he talks about dopamine stacking. And stacking dopamine, like watching TV while you're eating a favorite food and snacking or a favorite snack and combining that with your favorite glass of wine or an alcohol drink, this floods your reward system and it reduces long-term sensitivity to pleasure. It feels good in the moment, but it makes everything feel duller over time. And instead, we want to try spreading out those high dopamine activities or things that really are going to spike it, right? So watch that favorite show of yours. If you really look forward to a television show, it's a guilty pleasure kind of show for you, that definitely is spiking dopamine for you. Especially if that's for you, that is, it might not be something that spikes dopamine for me, but if it's something that you really look forward to, then it definitely is for you. So instead of combining that with, food and with alcohol, just watch the show. All right. Watch the show with something that maybe if you really want to have something in your hand, have a glass of tea, but something that just is nice, but not overstimulating. Enjoy a meal without scrolling on your phone. Now, I know that many of us have a phone problem, a phone addiction, maybe even a phone habit that is not that is, again, robbing us of our natural dopamine levels. I can raise my hand on this one and say that I know that I need to work on my phone habits. And one of these is I'm going to talk about next, and that's have a bath without any type of other tools. I take my phone into the bathtub often, pretty much always these days. And so I really need to think about that in terms of, because my baths are definitely something that I very much look forward to. Even if the activities are healthy, separating them helps restore balance. And this is especially helpful if you are working on changing your relationship with alcohol. If alcohol is a part of your nightly routine, you don't want to pair it with every other source of stimulation. Let it stand alone. All right. And so that's just number one, is not layering high dopamine activities. Number two, don't peak dopamine before or after work. That's, and whether that's anything that's tedious for you, a tedious task, don't peak dopamine before or after. If you start your day with Instagram and coffee and end it with wine and TV, you are teaching your brain that dopamine comes from everything except effort. And that is going to make it harder to get motivated. I want you to think about that. If you start your day with coffee and Instagram and these dopamine, high dopamine activities, and then you come home and you stack together wine and TV, but you don't do anything during the context of the day when you are working, you are making it harder to get and stay motivated. Instead, you want to strip away some of the pre and post task stimulation. Let your brain find reward in the work itself. Over time, your nervous system starts associating effort with meaning, not just with relief. And if you're learning something new, like a language or a skill, don't buffer it with rewards. Let the practice be the dopamine. And you'll be surprised how much easier the task becomes after a few days. While you are working, and this is and I'm going to, this, I think we're going to talk about here in a minute on another one of these tips, but during the course of a day at work, look for opportunities to remind yourself cognitively of things that you enjoy about completing tasks or the work that you do. This is important in terms of regulating dopamine throughout the day. Number three, this kind of talks about what we just said in terms of starting your day with Instagram and coffee. Do not start your day with high dopamine activities. Many of us blast our brains the first thing in the morning, emails, coffee, notifications, and that's a quick dopamine hit that sets you up for overstimulation and undersatisfaction. Instead, start your day slow. Get that morning light. Take a walk, journal, meditate, Or even better, do something meaningful or effortful, something you want to get good at. This trains your brain to build what's called a dopamine ramp, where pleasure builds with effort. That creates intrinsic motivation and mental resilience. A dopamine ramp. So we want to start slow and build up. Don't start your day with a high peak of dopamine and expect yourself to be able to maintain that throughout the day. That's not how managing dopamine works. Number 4, move first, especially if you're feeling really unmotivated. If you wake up unmotivated, the worst thing you can do is wait for the feeling to change. Motivation is not the starting point, it is the result of action. And movement increases dopamine and the number of dopamine receptors. So get up, move your body, go for a walk, stretch, dance maybe, and add a warm shower with a cold finish at the end if you feel like it, if you can. That's another way of this combination of raising your dopamine baseline helps you feel more energized and capable for several hours. It's simple, it's free, it's very effective. So go out, move your body, and then take a warm shower with that cold finish. That cold finish is something that I've talked about before, the cold plunge, something that you can do to help manage your dopamine.
Just a quick break to talk with you more about Sunnyside. Did you know that Sunnyside uses science to help you reach your goals by focusing on 3 scientifically proven superpowers that you have? Number 1, the power of pre-commitment. Each week, you set an intention for the week ahead that includes a tracking goal, a drink goal, and possibly a dry day goal. Number 2, the power of conscious interference. You'll learn the habit of tracking each day as soon as you finish it, which creates a mindful pause before you start the next day. And number 3, positivity. We know that this is a big step that can be tough at times, right? And that's why Sunnyside offers coaching through SMS and email to give you support, advice, and motivation. You can check out a free 15-day trial at www.sunnyside.co/Molly. That's www.sunnyside.co/Molly.
This is what I was talking about before, this number 5. Look for gratitude during effort. One of the most powerful but underutilized tools for managing dopamine is gratitude, especially gratitude you feel during hard or boring tasks. And this isn't toxic positivity, it's strategic neurochemistry, all right? Finding something to be grateful for while working or learning creates small dopamine pulses that make the task feel better over time. Try thoughts like, I'm grateful I have the time for this, or I am becoming someone that I'm proud of. And I understand you may not feel it at first, right? You may not believe it when you say these things, but repeated thoughts, and when we practice a thought over and over again, it becomes a belief. And repeated effort rewires your brain for how you experience tasks and how you experience hard work and how you experience challenges. That's literally how you do it. You do it by taking time in the moment to reframe what you are doing and change your thoughts about it. Number 6, and this may sound a little counterintuitive, is don't reward yourself every time. The research here is clear. If you expect a reward after every task, you weaken the dopamine signal from the task itself. Listen to that again. If you expect a reward after every task, you weaken the dopamine signal from the task itself. Instead, you want to try to randomize your rewards. Sometimes treat yourself, sometimes don't. And this variability actually increases motivation and strengthens your connection to the work itself. And note, this is the same principle that makes gambling addictive, but here you can use it to make hard things more bearable and progress more satisfying. That's why we want to randomize rewards. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Discipline isn't about trying harder. It's really about understanding dopamine. When you manage dopamine, when you slow down, space things out, let effort feel good, your brain stops resisting change and it starts craving it. So if you've ever said, I just have no willpower, maybe it's time to say, I just haven't been taught how to work with my brain yet. That's what we're doing here, learning how to support your biology instead of fighting against it. Inside Alcohol Minimalist, everything that we do is grounded in neuroscience, but not in absolutes. And this conversation around dopamine is a perfect example. If you listen to my conversation or read the book Dopamine Nation, you will hear that Dr. Anna Lembke recommends a 30-day alcohol-free period as a dopamine reset. And there is dopamine reset research all over the internet. And that's a valuable tool for some people. But I want to be very clear. That isn't how I started. When I began changing my drinking habits, I did not start with a 30-day break. I started slowly. I met myself where I was. I built in one alcohol-free day and then I added more. I looked at my patterns. I began asking questions and using tools like journaling, like managing my urges and my cravings, and my mindset around alcohol, challenging my alcohol core beliefs to change the conversation that I was having with myself. And eventually, I was ready for those longer breaks. But it was a progression for me, not a prescription. And I think that's important to honor, not just for people who feel like they can't do 30 days yet, but because in truth, no single path works for everyone. We have to remember that dopamine, while a powerful piece of the puzzle, is just one of literally thousands, if not millions, of neurotransmitters. And this baseline peak trough model is helpful, but like all models, it's not the whole story. And there's a quote that I found from George Box, who's a statistician, who says, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And I think that's important to remember. Even within neuroscience, there are debates, evolving theories, and significant gaps. Subfields like neuroethology exist precisely because context matters. And yet, social media is full of people speaking very confidently about very complicated topics, often with more style than substance. So I encourage you to stay curious. Use what works, drop what doesn't. Understand that your brain is dynamic and your process will be dynamic too. When we work with our brains, not against them, we begin to build habits that actually fit and are sustainable for the rest of our lives. And that's where peace lives, when we are willing to do things for the rest of our lives. Your brain isn't broken, it's adaptive. And when you learn how dopamine works, you can stop blaming yourself, start building something better. And if this episode resonated with you, I want you to make sure to go back, listen to this Think Thursday episode on dopamine and the other episode with Dr. Anna Lembke, because this one builds on both of those. And if you want help starting to implement these changes, I would love to invite you to come over to the Alcohol Minimalist Facebook group, where we are talking about things in a deeper way, or check out Making Peace with Alcohol, which is my ongoing monthly group coaching program and online course. You can learn more about everything that I do over at www.mollywatts.com. All right, my friends. Enjoy the sunshine outside. I hope it's sunny where you are. Manage that dopamine and choose peace. I will talk to you on Thursday. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.